Hello, and welcome to the Weshtern Philosophy Podcast. Two friends with oceans and oceans discussing the unseen forces in our lives through the lens of music, mystery, and crack. Today, we embark on a particularly highfalutin exploration of the topic of internalization and expression.
It's interesting. It's nearly like you've taken that poem as a pill or something. You were chewing on it and you really have got that learning that's in it. Where did I hear someone say this now? The point of art, maybe it had to do with subsidies or something, where it's like, we're not subsidizing art and we think it's not as important as all the physical things, but then if someone you love dies, suddenly this is what you need. And we all gravitate, even the most cynical person will gravitate towards something like that to help with the huge discomfort of being in those moments.
Good morning, Bart.
Good morning, Anthony.
How is the coffee?
Coffee is warm and lovely.
Good. I'm glad we were able to rehearse that.
Yeah. Yeah. When I ask about the coffee, you say it's beautiful.
That's it. Well, for those of you who aren't in the room, which presumably is everyone, this is our second take at starting the episode because I had the mic set to the wrong setting. So a little bit of inside baseball for you there. So if Bart sounded a bit contrived when he was answering the coffee question,
it was
that's
contrived.
Because he's acting. He's acting. It's not off the cuff. Now, all of this is off the cuff, and people might think it's carefully scripted.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's
it sounds very carefully scripted. Yeah.
Wildly improvised. The coffee is warm. The house is cold. The boiler is malfunctioning.
Yeah. I'm in my coat. But I'm okay.
Yeah. So the plan is to record this episode speaking at double speed, and then I'll slow it down to an hour.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
So we keep the metabolism up. We'll get straight into it because we need to start talking early because I don't know how to name this topic. Because this is something I've been thinking about for a while, and I don't know how to express it. As in, I don't know if there's a name for it, but I think it's a thing. As in, when I explained it to you, I think you kind
of
got it.
It made sense, yeah. I thought I have something to say about it. And also, even more inside baseball, but we are still kind of finding our way with the topics. Like, we really enjoy going for the big, deep topics, but then sometimes it's just Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's just Wednesday morning. I'm just meeting my lovely friend.
That's it.
And it's like
no
I don't want to be talking about death.
Yeah.
Please. Not today.
No metaphysics before midday.
Exactly.
It's like most of these chats happen when you're blind drunk at 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're trying to do it after our coffee.
Exactly. Well, the coffee is definitely a powerful drug and one that I am far more addicted to than the other one. Although I like the other one as well. But during the COVID, we did a cleanse. Of course, we did a cleanse. We did a fucking cleanse, bye. And it was the worst thing was the coffee. I just murdering head. Like, if someone went, you can never drink again in your life, I'd be like,
yep.
That's a shame because there's a bit of crack attached to that. But if someone went, you were never going to drink coffee again in your life, I'm like, the next. It's not even the rest of my life. It's more like the next 3 days are going to be hell.
Oh, yeah.
Because the headaches are blinding.
Yeah. And I'm drinking a little more now, but a couple of weeks ago, I was down to a third of a cup of coffee a day.
Jeez, good man.
And that wasn't intentional. That was just kind of what I was feeling. But on a day where I didn't have that, or even a day when the coffee was made a bit weak that morning, the headache was unreal. So we are addicts.
100%. But sure, pick your poison.
Yeah, that's it.
But this mystery topic, it wasn't just coffee, was it?
No, it wasn't. Although kind of it's turning into that. I just remember in my undergrad days, a buddy of mine, we were just talking about, when you're an undergrad, it's all about getting the essay in at 11:59, 1 minute before the submission date and
always
submission time. And back in my days, you had to hand them in as well. So
we are from the same year.
I know,
Antonius.
but
where were you doing the Kerry Hedge School University?
UCC music department, and it's a big fucking hill as well, and you'd be pegging up, puffing. And it was midday, you had to hand them into the secretary before midday, and you'd be drenched in sweat, and there'd be you'd get there, and you're like, oh my God, there's 1 minute left, and you get there, and there's 14 people in front of you, because everyone's had the same idea. And then you'd kind of fudge the submission time as well. You're 12:03, you're 11:59. She was always very good. Carmel was her name, I think. But anyway, my buddy we were talking about writing essays, and he was like, 1 cup of coffee is 900 unedited words. He's like, it's just shy of 1,000 word vomit. Just bleh. Just.
Oh, the amount of garbage that those poor professors have to sit through. Because we're all there's some people who are brilliant and made for that stuff, but 99% of people there are just doing it to get through it. And oh yes, I was one of those.
Okay, I think we all were. And I think that's kind of the point of an undergrad as well, isn't it? You just faff about and you feel
you were talking about undergrad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
I was talking about the whole experience. Yeah.
But yeah, it is.
I'm actually thinking that I probably had to hand it in on paper as well. I just literally do not remember. And I don't know if that had to do with the other drug or if that which is alcohol. I don't know why I'm being...
I know. Bart's a heroin addict. People might not know.
The other drug. Just shooting up on the streets of Galway.
Can we just refer to drink from now on as the other drug?
It's kind of nice. It's kind of... The other drug, it's the big one.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I had to go with you, because I probably had to hand it in on paper as well. I just don't remember. I don't. I remember spending a long time. I know I wrote it on a computer now. I'm pretty sure about that. It wasn't handwritten.
Yeah, we were still doing clay tablets, but
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Of course you were. Right, go on.
All right. And actually it's kind of related to that a little bit, as in that's a good example of the opposite.
Let's make it even more complicated, please.
But, these essays, what you're doing there is you're regurgitating information you don't understand, that nobody particularly wants to read. As an undergrad, you're not probably contributing anything too interesting to the discussion. You're just hitting a word count. What I'm talking about, and I'm labeling it for the time being until we find something better, internalization and expression. So it's the idea. And I'm thinking specifically I was actually thinking specifically of you, Bart, when you sing a song. Yeah. And I think the songs you sing, there's a lot of them that you deeply connect with, Yeah. I think there's a couple in particular which we can both probably name. But it's that idea of I was like, all right, so Bart I was actually first of all thinking that you don't need the lyrics, I was thinking it's gorgeous. How many songs do you reckon you know the lyrics to off by heart?
That's a good question. But it is interesting that it's not nice when people take out the phone. Trish, our friend Trish O'D is very good at this. She's like, don't take out the phone. I'd rather have you just screw it up a bit than have... And sometimes she'd be like, okay, we need to nail this and maybe you can have a printout or whatever. But how many would it be? Well, I know that when I was doing solo gigs, and I still do them sometimes, because they're actually good crack, but that's a different story. But I had a list of 100 songs, so probably I know, I'd say 200 off by heart or something, I'd say. Yeah. But it's funny that it's not even necessarily remembering it, but remembering that you remember them.
Yeah.
My list of those songs, there are hardly any notes on it. Yeah. It's just that's the thing. It's so fun. It's when you're in a session and people go, all right, go on, Bart, sing a song. And I'm like, songs? Yeah. But you actually just need that prompt. But anyway, yeah. So about 200,
so
I'd say.
you have 200. So you can express 200 songs. But then I was thinking of, that means there's 200 songs alive inside of you. So I was thinking about that idea of how you take something that lives outside you in the world, a song or an idea or a poem or a concept or a skill, and what does internalization mean? It's you take it in, and we can all, like the undergrad essays, we can all skim a textbook and do a book report on it. But if you write 500 words on the old man in the sea, you probably haven't internalized it. But then some people can, like you with the songs. So that's step one. You have to take these in, and then they have to be alive inside you. And then step two is expression. Excuse me. And I was just really interested in that, because I'm like, it's almost like a diet, because those things you memorize, those things you internalize are now with you. So, what are they doing while they're inside you? And then how do you get them from inside to outside?
Yeah. It is very interesting. It's also interesting that I haven't thought about that deeply at all, even though it's something I do so regularly. Because sometimes I will be at another. I played a gig with Carla Began and our other friend Sonia O'Brien in Egan's in the Scanner. I was halting there for a moment because I was like, we'll keep this anonymous. And I was like, why? They're great. Don't keep it anonymous. Brilliant. They're amazing. Maybe because they don't want to be associated with me. Well, Sonia is, she's lost in that regard now.
Yeah, she is.
But
I'm sure she was the one who pulled you out of the crack house.
But Carla, I find, is a lovely singer and someone who has a wonderful performative energy. Who can really connect with people. And she had like a huge list of songs, and it was I loved it. It was scribbled and whatever. And she was singing so many songs that I was like, oh, I like these. And I half know these. I should put them on the list. But then when it gets to actually learning them, I find I don't always have the momentum or the energy to do it. Now, part of that definitely has to do with just being busy and all that. But I think in part as well, it really has to resonate strongly with me for me to make the effort of learning it. Yeah. Now, the ones that resonate with me really strongly, I won't have to consciously learn it because they would just go in. You know, I'll just be listening to them so often that because I love whatever is being expressed so much.
Could you give an example?
Oh, Jesus, poor John Spillane is always there. But songs like that, we always do Under That Old Clare Moon or Passage West, I don't have to think about them that much. But then, for instance, there's another song of his which I think is also very beautiful, which is When You and I Were True. That's one of the ones where I keep forgetting a verse. Or I have to... So then there is a little bit of effort involved, maybe because it's not resonating. It's absolutely beautiful. So this is not... in how far I resonate with them has nothing to do with the quality of what it's put out. Yep. It's just like how much percent of a match is it, I suppose. But then you mainly are motivated to learn them because expressing them really does something for you, you know. Like the ones I like singing are the ones that when I sing them, something happens.
Yeah, and I think that is what triggered this, because I think there are songs you sing and you're like, I know the lyrics to this, it's a good song, I can deliver it well, here it is. And then there's songs you sing where like there's a little bit of something else happening. I suppose it's because we play together so often. Yeah. Maybe I notice it. I'd be interested to hear if other people notice that as well. But definitely the John Spillane songs. I think Valhalla seems like an important song to you as well, you know.
Valhalla by so that was a yoga tune that has been made into a song by Niall McCabe, which I really like, but it's a little harder technically. It's interesting because I've not really thought about this in any technical way, but I do know that especially when I'm on my own, playing on my own, so then I don't have to think about other instruments or anything, then I will go as much as possible for the songs that are just really resonating with me, and then that is where people will get the big response to as well. But then the funny thing is, as well, you need to also play things that people know and kind of find a happy middle ground there, you know. But I wonder if it's a specific... You know, if we're talking about this topic, I'm wondering if it's if it's really specific to that process. You say this a lot, you know, that you talk a lot about something needs to be spoken out, literally like out of you, nearly like.
Yeah, it's going back to the Chinese medicine thing. I'm just going to adjust your mic. There we go. You know, if you think of the organism as having a boundary where the organism ends and the universe begins, which again is an imperfect metaphor, but you know, you've got this boundary where you are on the inside and the world is on the outside. Let's speak it like that. There are four things. This boundary serves four purposes. And this boundary is governed by the lungs. So think about inhalation and exhalation. So inhalation means the boundary needs to open up to let good things in and close to keep bad things out. Exhalation means the boundary needs to open up to let bad things out and close to keep good things in terms of nutrition, you know. But also, as I'm saying that, I'm like, the boundary also needs to open up to let good things out and be expressed. So basically, because you're talking about songs and how the really resonant ones find their way into you without you even thinking about it. I really strongly connect with songs. Like, I've listened to songs for like 3-4 hours on loop, you know, like if a song is really matching my mood, I can just hang out in it. But even after I do that, I might not have any idea of the lyrics. Like, the lyrics do not find their way into my head. And even chord progressions is something I have to work at. They don't come naturally to me either. Whereas, like, I have friends, I think you're probably one of them, people can start humming a melody and you can throw the chords underneath it. Like, I really struggle with that. So for me, when I need to internalize something, I have to usually consciously do it. And one example of that would be, I was working on cruise ships for 3 years, and by the end of it, I was kind of losing my mind. The first 2 years, I was doing Chinese medicine, I was doing acupuncture and herbs on them, and you're learning a lot at the start, and a lot of the experiences are really new and really fresh. And but by the third year, like, you're just like, there's nothing new to learn. And the ship I was on was quite boring, and I just felt my mind start to atrophy. And I was just like, I'm surrounded by all these plastic experiences and wonderful people, but people that are very transient and temporary, because everyone's contracts are starting and ending at different times. You might make a great mate and they'd be gone 2 weeks later, you know? So it was just a funny environment, and I felt myself getting a little bit numb. And so what I started to do was memorize, oh God, it sounds very pretentious, but I started to memorize poetry, and it was literally just because I needed to keep my brain sharp. I needed to feel like something meaty and valuable and nourishing as an experience was coming into my body. And I remember I used to give these seminars, and you'd turn up, you have a clipboard for signing people up, you know, and I would get there 10 minutes early, set up the PowerPoint and whatever, and I'd sit there with the clipboard, and I would turn the sign-up sheet, I would turn over so it was blank, and I would start rewriting poetry. Up until that point, I'd always just kind of memorized poetry, kind of well enough to kind of regurgitate it. But writing it down, I found very different, because I was like, I'm going to like learn every word that's capitalized, where every comma goes, where every line break goes. I'm going to recreate it as perfectly as possible. And I found that a very different experience. So I fill the back of the sign-up sheet with all this poetry, and it would usually be, you know, not maudlin, but fairly grim poetry. Like, I remember there was things like T.S. Eliot, The Hollow Men, and W.B. Yeats, The Second Coming, which is about the coming of the Antichrist and stuff like that, turning and turning, and the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, all this post-apocalyptic imagery. And then one day I forgot the clipboard, and a guest handed it into guest services, and she's like, I don't know who this belongs to, but they need help.
This guy should definitely not be treating people.
Yeah, exactly. And I found something funny. I'd always loved T.S. Eliot and the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, because I did an arts undergrad, and that's the only way they let you in. But there are all these, like, it's a very long poem. There's all these stanzas that hit so hard. And near the end, there's a stanza that I'd always just kind of brushed over. I was like, this one doesn't grab me so much. But when I sat down to memorize the whole poem, I had to work extra hard at that stanza, because I'd never paid much attention to it. And then when I had to sit with it and really try to recreate it, I ended up absolutely loving it. I loved the cadence of the language in it, and it became my favorite of the whole thing. And I actually have it tattooed on me now. It was my first tattoo, was that stanza. Yeah. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back while the wind blows the water white and black. I just really love that. But it took, for me, it didn't. I think that's what I'm saying basically, is that the internalization part does not come easy for me, but it's always very, very worthwhile.
I think part of that maybe as well, or I'm wondering about this now, is, God, I'm speaking very low energy, but I think this is the energy of today. We're going to go with it. But I'm also thinking, is that the tattoo there? Yeah, I've see, because it's on your chest. I've never stopped to read it because it's just awkward during lovemaking. No. People
were obviously wondering if we record the podcast shirtless, and now they have their answer.
I know. Don't rob them of that dream. No, okay, but seriously, I was thinking, because you and I always find, as 87 boys born in the same year,
87 boys.
That'll be a t-shirt. But no, but just as kindred spirits, we often have a lot of similarities. But I think a big difference, which could also be a real boon when you're creating music together. We were talking about this before podcast. Keep your eyes out for the Weshtern Philosophy album. Okay, never mind. I'm derailing myself again. I won't go as bad as I did in the rest episode because I'm still mortified about how derailed I got there. But I think a difference between us is that you value complexity more than I do. But what is nice about it is that when I go towards complexity, for me personally, it usually feels like a distraction from the essence, but it doesn't feel that way with you. So I don't know if it is because you have a bigger capacity for complexity than me, or if it's just a different thing that you are trying to express that is more important to you than the simplicity. And I'm wondering if maybe the internalization that I do automatically is also just because I learn simpler things, you know. And one of the reasons I'm very good, thank you for saying that, at putting chords underneath a melody is because it's all I fucking do, and they're not jazz chords, you know. But seriously, I'm kind of amazed in this moment thinking about, like, when you were just reciting is the word, reciting that poem, I closed my eyes and I saw it, and it was beautiful. I couldn't recite that poem. I could, of course I could, but it's not me in a way. Like, when I think about the songs that I love, it's usually fairly simple. And the simpler, the more heartbreaking I find it. Like, there is this one Tom Waits song that's not very famous. Fuck it, I'll sing it for you because it's really short. I'll probably have to go back a little bit. And it just, I don't know why, but it breaks my heart, even though it's not that sad. So it's, you've got to take me home, you silly girl. Put your arms around me. Take me home, silly girl, for the world's not round without you. I'm so sorry that I broke your heart. Please don't leave my side. Take me home, silly girl, 'cause I'm still in love with you. Now, there's a couple of problems here. First of all, that was a very pretentious thing to do, but I'd like you to.
That was gorgeous. No, I'm going to veto any mention of pretension in this episode because I think we just have to go for it. So
okay, thanks,
and thank you for sharing. That was unreal.
But isn't it funny that the first 500 times, because like you, I can listen to a thing on repeat, and there's really nice clunky piano beneath it, and even now, like, I can feel like the hairs on my arm stand up because they're, I don't know what it is, but for me, it's nearly as if I've come into this particular incarnation to learn some kind of simple lesson. And it has to do something with unity and connection and love and forgetting about the lie of being apart from each other. And I think for you, maybe it's a different... Well, obviously, it's a different learning.
I'm here to make things more complicated.
No, but you carry the complexity in a beautiful way. But it's funny that if I write a song and I start making it more complicated, I'm like, nah, man, you're just throwing up a smokescreen.
Yeah.
For me, but it doesn't feel that way with you. It doesn't feel like you are throwing up a smokescreen.
Well, thank you. You're actually touching on a real deep wound of mine, because I have always been accused of overcomplicating things and making things too fussy and too ornamented. And I remember being in a recording studio when I was 17, 18, and recording a bass line with my old band, Stupid Betty. For anyone who wants to go on a YouTube, no, don't do that. Why did I do that? No, nobody look
do it. Please do it.
But we were recording in a recording studio, and we recorded live, so the full band, sans vocals, and we started playing, and the producer was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, this is the bass line." He's like, "It's not locking in with the kick drum." And I'm like, No, this doesn't. He's like, "It has to lock in with the kick drum." And I was like, "Oh no, yeah, I know usually bass would lock in with the kick drum, but no, I'm doing." He's like, "No, it has to lock in with it," and he wouldn't let me record my bass line. He kept stopping the recording until I laid down a line that locked in with the kick drum. Yeah, and there was a lot of that, and I developed a real thing about it, and I definitely think I do tend towards, and I know I just vetoed this, but pretension and complexity and stuff like that. I think I definitely...
Not pretension, but yes, complexity.
Yeah. And no, I think at times I was like making things complicated for the sake, but that's also kind of playful. Sometimes it's fun to just massively overcomplicate something, to do the most complicated arrangement of Danny Boy you can possibly imagine. It probably won't sound great, but it's a great learning experience. And then, what's that Charles Mingus quote? To make the simple complicated is easy, but to make the complicated simple is art. And, I had teachers and stuff as well who were always telling me just like, slow down, just lock in, just feel the groove and stuff like this. And I'm not that kind of bass player. And we were just talking about, like, recently I was asked to play bass on a track, and I listened to it a few times, and I was like, oh, I can hear the kind of bass line this needs, and I'm not very good at that. So I was like, for that and other reasons, I was like, no, thank you. I was like, get somebody else to do it. And I have no problem with that. But yeah, and I think actually what this is getting at is the second part of it, the expression, the things that you have internalized, getting them back out into the world. I definitely have a bit of a block there. Like, for example, I can't hold a note. I can't sing. And I completely accept that is some kind of mental block. I don't think there's many people out there that genuinely lack the ability to sing. I think it's a fundamental human skill, but it is one I don't have, and I do wonder sometimes why that is. And I think part of the whole idea of the pod was to, for the two of us to start expressing a bit as well.
And expressing a bit carelessly, because I think in speech, that is our problem. That the feeling that you need to be that careful all the time. But I would say that I'm not a therapist, but I don't like the idea that you do not have it. Because I really do think, I know that's a bit pat, but I really think you have it, but something is inhibiting it.
Yeah.
But that's a mad story about the recording. Especially if you're doing it live. Like when you said, we did live, I'm like, oh, great. I can see that nearly, for some reason, I see it in a room like we are, like high wooden room with an interesting acoustic, And then for some fucking wanker to go, no, you need to do it the way I do. Now, I've definitely said to you once or twice when we were playing something, I think we might need to lock in on something.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But that is like 2% of everything we play.
You'd have to as well, because I think if you have to be trying things, they don't always work, and you have to rely on the people around you to...
Yeah. And it's like if I make a kind of a break on the guitar, and then the bass still goes doom doom doom, then that break isn't clean. But that's the only thing. But it's very interesting to me that for me it's always towards simplicity. All the things I was even thinking about poetry that I love. I was thinking of that Dylan Thomas thing. I just made space there for the mic to pick up your burp.
Yeah,
sorry. But
if only I could edit it out.
That Dylan Thomas thing of though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion. I'm realizing it's always coming down to the same thing for me, and it isn't. It is a simplification rather than a complication.
I love that. That's a note. Complication. If that is such a good word. A complication.
It sounds like comping as well as it accompanying.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering. You do hold complexity well. I don't think you overcomplicate things. I think you add texture by doing it, and it's beautiful. But interesting that you were punished for it as well.
Yeah, and I think I'm just used to like internalizing things being a bit of work, and I'm also used to like internalizing things that maybe I don't enjoy initially. And I had a point. Yeah, so you were talking about how there's a theme to the things you have internalized. So for me, I think if I'm internalizing something, when I say internalizing, I mostly mean memorizing something. I mostly mean getting something to the point where I can recreate it.
This is quite specifically all music related, but
music or poetry or quotes or something. We could talk about skills or physical skills as well, but we're talking about that right now, given this is an audio medium. But I think in general they serve two functions for me. Either there's a feeling I'm having that I don't know how to name, or there is a feeling I'm having that is unpleasant and I want to take the edge off it a little bit.
Okay, I'm just gonna, a feeling that you don't know, that you're experiencing that you don't know how to name, or it's something where you're trying to take, a feeling where you're trying to take the edge off. Yeah.
So one I always think about, like for me, this is a functional poem, right? This is a poem I memorized not because I think it's beautiful, but because I think it's useful. And it's a Yeats poem. Oh God, it's hard when there's a mic in front of you, man. I don't know if you found this, but anyway, I hope I can get this out. But it's a Yeats poem, and it's called "To a Friend Whose Work Has Come to Naught." Now that all the truth is out, be secret and take defeat from every brazen throat. For how could you compete, being honour-bound with one whom, if it were proved he lies, was neither shamed in his own nor in his neighbour's eyes? Bred to a harder thing than triumph, walk away, and, like a laughing string whereon mad fingers play amidst a place of stone, be secret and exult, because of all things known, that's the most difficult.
See, what hits me about that is that it is, the cadence is beautiful, but the meaning is definitely layered, and I would probably have to hear it again or read it to completely get it. What are we exulting about?
I think what Yeats is saying is like, this person has been slandered publicly by another man, by and you're saying, look, your work has come to naught. You've lost, basically. Yeah. You've gone up against somebody and you've lost. And how do you deal with that? You've been publicly shamed.
Yeah.
And he said, bred to a harder thing than triumph.
Yeah.
You
okay,
know,
I have it again now.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned this to me actually at one point when I was worrying about like still getting used to living in a small community and that maybe someone would have a negative opinion of me. And I think you mentioned this and then it made complete sense. But the funny thing is now, because it was about someone whose work has come to naught, I had a completely different image.
Sure. Yeah.
I had like an image of what to do when all your efforts like of your whole life are in vain was kind of, so that stopped me from actually hearing what you were actually saying. But now it makes sense, because I remember you mentioning that to me before and it actually being really helpful, because And like, again, that's also the part of the podcast where it's like, yeah, put it out there and let people have their opinions, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But that's beautiful.
And I think that poem says it in a way that, you know, nowadays we're all about like, you know, if you're upset, cognitive behavioral therapy, or, you know, do this or this practice or something, and they'll just be, just let it go, you know. And if I'm upset and publicly shamed and somebody tells me, just let it go or it'll pass, I'm like, I don't think that's that helpful. Now, it's true, like, we should let it go and it will pass, you know. But on an emotional level, that doesn't hit for me. But this idea of like, be secret and exult, you know, and like even telling you how to do it, like a laughing string whereon mad fingers play amidst a place of stone, be secret and exult. I love that. There's a bit of madness to it. I think of somebody fiddling in like a derelict famine cottage or something.
No one is hearing it.
You know, and they're just mad, but you're like, that's what you have to be. You have to take a little bit of that secret madness and keep that spark alive in yourself until this blows over.
And have faith that it is definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
And in a way, you will be victorious as
yes.
well. And I think with the thing of letting go, it's probably more, it should be embracing, actually. If you're able to embrace, because letting go that. Has a thing of pushing it out.
Yes, sure.
But actually, if you can hold the slimy thing to yourself, it will change.
Yeah.
Or lessen. That's very interesting. We're all over the shop, but I'm loving it.
Yeah.
It's very, but it's, and isn't it cool that you still have those lines all in your head, you know?
They're there when I need them, you know? And like, that's what I mean. It's alive in me. Like, that changed. That, memorizing that poem, I think hearing that poem helps in the moment, but memorizing that poem has fundamentally changed how I feel about defeat and being defeated. Like, it has changed me. Like, when I carry that inside myself, I'm a different person because that's in me, and my actions will change.
It's interesting. It's nearly like you've taken that poem as a pill or something.
Yeah,
or it's
100%.
Really functional. You were chewing on it, and you kind of you really have got that learning that's in it. Where did I hear someone say this now? I was somewhere I heard this where they were saying about the point of art. Maybe it had to do with subsidies or something, you know, where it's like, oh, we're not subsidizing art, and we think it's not as important as all the physical things, but then if someone you love dies, suddenly this is what you need.
Yep.
And we all gravitate, like even the most cynical person will gravitate towards something like that to help with the huge discomfort of being in those moments. Yeah, that's really made me think now. I'm still really interested in what... No. But I thought what struck me as well when you were talking about the cruise ships was that we really need something to keep us going when everything becomes stagnant.
Yes.
I really remember when I had my first job after college, and it was shite. I had to travel a long way for it. We were not treated well. It was not paying well. And I really didn't like it. And I was feeling really bad because of it, because it was like, this is my environment. But then I picked up acting again, and I found a really nice acting troupe who did great, like it was kind of semi-professional, but it was still, the quality was really high, and we'd like guys who like organize huge arena tours for rock bands, did the staging and you know, it was the lights, and it was really cool. And just as soon as I started doing that, as soon as I started just rehearsing for that once a week, I was fine. And it's interesting how we need that. If you've the feeling of forward momentum anywhere, all the rest is fine. It's like, okay, I'm just doing that to get a bit of money, but this is where we're moving. And then you look back a few years later and you're like, yeah, okay, we have moved.
Yep.
So that feeling was right. But it's interesting that you nearly had to fucking claw it out of the earth on the cruise ship.
I never take the easy way. Acting's an interesting one, Bart, because you've done a fair bit of acting, and you've also you've acted as real characters. You've portrayed actual people.
Yeah, very recently again. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's an interesting internalization, isn't it? Where you're taking the mantle of not just an abstract artistic concept, but another person and their actions.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that, what that means then. I think it's not so much the mantle of the person that you're wearing, but I think it, with songs, yeah, okay. I'm just going to make a note so I don't confuse myself completely again. Because I wanted to say something about, I'm going to get back to this, but I wanted to actually say something before we leave the musical realm, that when I was kind of, by necessity, starting to do solo gigs because the people I was playing with were abroad and I was doing weekly solo gigs, I realized that there is a kind of channeling in it. Because it's you're in a very strange position, you know. This is obviously in the context of Irish pubs, you know, but you're sitting there, guitar, microphone, big speakers, everyone can hear you, and there's a pub with at minimum 15 people, at maximum, I don't know, 50, 60 people, and they're all looking at you, or not, which can also be a problem. And then you just start expressing that way. And there was one actually I did in like a pub in Lisdoon, which will remain nameless. And I walked in there. I'd never been there before, and it was just like a Western kind of scene, you know. Just I came in the door, and everyone just looked at me like with an unfriendly eye, going, "Who the fuck is your man?"
Oh my god!
You know, and I was just
such an iconic.
I know, and I came home and I said, "You're there, slightly sweating because you have the heavy amp because they didn't have actually their own system, you know." And I came home to Yvonne and I said, like, "Geez, if we'd walked into that for a pint, we would have gone, no, let's just go next door. Let's go somewhere else." Not that there was necessarily anything wrong with the place, actually, but it was just that it was they all knew each other, and they're like, "Who the fuck are you?" But then to think, whereas normally you would not have wanted to have a pint in that circumstance, you are now going to express in a very vulnerable way.
Yeah.
And you just have to do it. You're getting paid for it. So you sit down and close your eyes and you start, and it's rough. But then I literally close my eyes. I just go, okay, I can't be taking on that input that's making me very insecure of people scowling at me. But then it's really helpful because you're not so looking at them all the time, you do become more in a channeling kind of thing, and you become much more comfortable, and it starts to resonate around the room, and you actually see people are starting to resonate with it. And at the end, it was lovely, and people enjoyed it, and you kind of you win them over. But it's a weird thing. And then the other thing I was thinking about is that I went to see Breed O'Donoghue, the what would you call her, spiritual healer, wise woman, who said to me also that I needed to also be sure to come back to earth afterwards. She was like, "No, it is channeling, and that is why people are responding." Because I found that sometimes people would respond very differently to the solo thing than to the joint thing. The joint thing, people would be like, "Oh, this is beautiful," and it's crack, and they see the interactions between the people, and the music is much more mischievous. But with the solo stuff, it could be more emotional for people sometimes. They could be more hit by the because I suppose also because you're there on your own, and it's more of a solo thing. It resonates with people in a more individual way as well, or something. I don't know. Sure, we could talk about this for days. But she said, yeah, you need to also then close that loop again, because then when you're coming back to earth or you're having a pint at the bar, you can't be that open. That's a nightmare. So I wanted to just say that before going on to the acting, because the acting is a different beast for me. It's something. It definitely is related to what we're talking about, but it's much more about for me anyway, about expressing the emotions that are part of the circumstance of that character. So when I play an IRA rebel, I'm not necessarily thinking of what he has done, but I'm really vibing with what is his feeling. And in that case, the feeling was of, anger at the mistreatment of the Irish people. But then that transmutes national boundaries. Like I could, because I'm not Irish, but I love this country, but I could connect with it because I understand those feelings.
Yeah.
And the anger at authority that's misused, and the pride in yourself and in the people you love, and wanting to really fight for that and stand up for that. So that's the emotion I'm in then. But the other part of acting is that it's sometimes wearing something that you're not allowed in real life. I've played a fair few baddies, and it's very enjoyable. And I think, and you hear proper actors, like professional actors, say that a lot. Of proper is a fucking, that's an annoying word. Sorry, Bart, I didn't mean it like that. but professional actors saying that they love playing baddies because they're interesting and complex and blah blah blah. I actually think it's just because we are using muscles that maybe we are usually not allowed to use. And for me, for instance, I've had a real thing as a very big man with anger and not expressing anger, because if you're big and you show your anger, it's quite intimidating. So I've always learned to kind of hunch and do it that way, and I'm trying to kind of find a nice balance there now. But so when in Holland we did a really, I thought, really well written version of the Passion story, but through the eyes of Mary Magdalene. So it was kind of a more female-led version of that story, and I thought it was beautiful songs and stuff. And I played, what you call him, Saint Peter of the betray. This is where my English is.
Doubting Peter, or
the one with the crow, and he hears before the crow.
You'll have betrayed me 3 times.
Yeah, betrayed me 3. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. I have it in Dutch and I don't have it in
Judas,
English.
Isn't it? Or was it Doubting Peter?
Yeah, that's Judas. Yeah. But then you've Peter is the one who pretends who doesn't know him. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Sorry, we're bad Catholics. We apologize.
Yeah, 100%. Funny. I'm realizing that I'm completely in my head in that scenario of the play. So I'm not in the official story. I'm in the version we had there. But he was so angry and felt let down by Jesus. So he was like, fuck him,
Yeah.
And he was so angry. And in this version, he was also very nasty to the women, to Mary Magdalene and Mary the Holy Virgin.
Yes.
And it was insane to me, if I saw the photos of it and stuff, how alive I was with that anger. And I think it really is just like expressing something that you're not allowed normally, and then obviously in that case you can take it to an extreme that I wouldn't never even want to in real life, but because it's like, no, in the, it's sanctified, the word, in kind of the holy space of the play and these bounds of the stage and everyone watching, we know this isn't the person Bart, this is a different person, and you just have complete liberty to go with that. And that's very powerful. Yeah. But with the songs, the expressing is much more personal, I think, to me. And with the acting, it's personally important because you're expressing all this stuff. But it's more about trying on a different energetic coat for me.
That's really interesting. Also, I think it's doubting Thomas, isn't it? Peter was, upon this rock I'll build my church. Obviously, I haven't internalized enough of the Christianity, but, do you go on?
I'm just thinking, because we were talking about Tom Waits, he has another beautiful song, Never Let Go. I'm not going to sing the whole of that, but he has, the line is, Peter denied and Judas betrayed. So that's the one.
Okay, right, we'll go with Tom Waits on this.
Yeah.
Can I just say something that popped into my head?
Go on.
There's I think it's from Suzanne. It's Leonard Cohen anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Jesus was a sailor when he walked upon the water, and he spent a long time watching from his lonely wooden tower. And when he knew for certain only drowning men could see him, he said, all men shall be sailors then until the sea shall free him. But he himself was broken long before the sky would open, forsaken, almost human. He sank beneath your wisdom like a stone.
Insane.
Leonard Cohen.
Insane.
Everything's just a mic drop moment with that man. Like any one of his
That's insane.
verses. And like that's something like the Yeats poem, I think that has quite a clear, it's advice. It's like you should think about it this way. That's just humanity versus godhood. That's like the role of the Messiah. That's love and celibacy and sin and power and death, all in a couple of lines.
And I think something like that you cannot contrive.
No.
I think that is pure channeling. Like that is, you are opening yourself up, and that wisdom comes from wherever the fucking wisdom comes. And those are always the best lines that people will write. And obviously he was fucking master at it, because that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But like it doesn't make sense at the first, like it definitely makes deep sense to us, but I don't think you can contrive something like that.
No.
It's like I always sing that song of his, like Dance Me to the End of Love, like dance me to your beauty like a burning violin. Like even that,
yeah.
I mean, that doesn't have the depth and complexity of one that you're, but that's just beautiful,
but
and it works at a deep level, but if you take it at face value, it's ridiculous.
I love that you've picked the most beautifully simple visual metaphor.
Yeah,
and
because I'm a simple man,
and I've picked this complicated. But they're both so impactful. Dance me to your beauty like a burning violin. Like, is there any more efficient way to describe the dynamic between those people and the kind of beauty that she is expressing and the kind of need that he is expressing and where it's going to end up? Everything is there.
But if people write not from that higher place, and it's very hard. Like I've written a few songs, I don't know if they're any good. Like some of them, parts of it. Thank you. No, but oh god, I was
Oh, it's true. I've heard them, and I think they are. But
okay,
go on.
Thank you. But it's thank you. Shut up. Oh, this has turned out into another fucking vulnerable podcast that it was that we weren't trying to.
We promised each other.
We should have just talked about death. We should have talked about death. But it was. The bits that I think are any good are the ones that I didn't think of but just came through me. And now I think the best thing I can produce is something that has flowed through me. It might not be of the same, I mean, we can nearly guarantee that it won't be of the same level as Leonard Cohen, obviously. But I do think there's something interesting there if you're talking about externalisation, internalisation, that the moving through has something to do with it, because it's neither in a way. It's just moving through. You are expressing it, but when songs are there is a band that I will not name whose sound I love, but the words are shite.
Yeah.
Even though I think they could probably do it, but it just sounds so. Like, let's write down and use a rhyming dictionary.
This one has this line has 8 syllables. Let's slot in the words. And
it really. But then again, to just contradict myself as well, I was watching a bit of that Beatles documentary, Get Back, and they seem to do it kind of that way. He just goes, get back, and it's great. Yeah. So you can move through that as well. Sometimes you kind of need the mechanical action maybe to fill it with something divine or whatever it is. But and I don't want to slag anyone off because I'm very insecure about my own output. But it was interesting to me, this example that I'm thinking of, and I think we've talked about it, that the sound is great, the musicianship is great, but you're just like, well, it has something to do with daring, I suppose. Daring to kind of let go and not create a safe, sanitized lines, but actually just
it might be daring, it might be intention, behind the lines. Like, as if somebody, there's a difference between saying, okay, this line needs 8 syllables, what am I going to plug in here? And plugging in something that's at least honest and artful. Or just, this line needs 8 syllables, here's 8 syllables.
Yeah.
Because like the Beatles, look, nobody listens to the Beatles for the lyrics. Like, one of their choruses literally says, all you need is love. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that is shocking. That is horrible.
You do know, Anthony. You only
No, the cynic in me refuses to believe it. But they were very honest about what they were. I often think about Rory Gallagher as well. His lyrics are very, very, down to earth, working class. He's got a song about a laundromat. I think he's got an album called The Laundromat. But like, I love his lyrics. I love them because they're just honest and beautiful, and he's just like, he's also having fun. Like, he was one of the most joyful musicians. I think you can hear that joy and playfulness in his guitar playing and his lyrics. And I think complicated lyrics, like if he was singing Suzanne by Leonard Cohen, it would actually get in the way of what he was trying to express. But I do think there are bands out there which, like, the lyrics just, I get the same thing. Like, we were listening to somebody, and everything was perfect. The musicianship was great. The production was great. But the lyrics were just, I was so sad because you left me. But then I realized, I'm all I need is myself, kind of thing,
But the funny thing is, sometimes that will actually work.
Yep.
But I think we can sense as human beings. This is also one of the reasons that I worry about AI, but I don't worry about it all the time, because I do think we have a sense for realness at a deep level. Not at a practical level, but at the deepest level we probably do. But that's a whole different...
Can I just quote a meme? I saw this great quote, and it was like, "Thank you to AI for convincing me the human soul exists by showing me what music sounds like without one."
Oh, yeah. This reminds me of a story I heard a podcaster tell. It was Andrew Santino, comedian. Of course, I only listen to comedians because I need a few laughs. And but he said this thing. He said his grandmother died. He saw her lying dead, and he felt joy because he could see she wasn't there anymore. I thought that was really beautiful. Mm-hmm. That was a nice way of turning that around. Yeah. Like, obviously he missed her, but he was like, I can see the thing that I loved is no longer there, so it has gone somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I quite like that. But what I was going to say about the lyrics, and I really hope we don't come across as snobby, by the way, but because we understand very well how fucking hard it is.
And how hard it is to put yourself out there.
And are not successful in this either. Like, I mean, some of those people, like the band I was thinking of just now with the choppy lyrics, they're very successful. Yep. So,
and different people connect with different things.
But I do believe, and that's what I wanted to get back to, that we connect to the honesty or something, or there is a real, because like you just described some lyrics that you didn't like or thought like, oh God. I can feel that way if I feel it has just been functionally inscribed. Anyway, functionally put into the song. Then again, there are hyper simple things that move me, like Badly Drawn Boy, who I think passed a couple of years ago. He has this song, what's it called now? I don't know what it's called, but it's about suicide. And he just has this line like... There's nothing I can say to make you try to feel okay. Nothing you can do to stop you thinking the way you do. But if the chance should happen that I'll never see you again, just remember that I always love you. And that last line, it's delivered so nearly stupidly. Just remember that I'll always love you. And it breaks me. Yeah. Because it's honest. So sometimes it's not even the quality necessarily of the language, but the honesty behind it or something. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm thinking of a couple of... Joanna Newsom, one of my favourite musicians, she's not on Spotify. More power to her. We are.
That was a weird turnaround, yeah.
I was just like, I really respect her for... I was just like, I really respect her for not being on Spotify. Then I realized we're on Spotify. So I bought one of her vinyls, and... the nice thing about a vinyl is you listen to the album through, and there's just like I honestly think she's one of the great living lyricists. And you can sit down and read her songs as poetry, and they really, really work. And actually, that's what I had to do because her songs are so long and complicated, and I struggle to absorb lyrics when I'm just listening. So I read all her lyrics and then listen to the songs again. And they're beautiful when they're written down, but my God, the way a line is sung can just change everything. And it can even be a slightly silly line. Like the title track is called "Have One on Me." And it's a bit of a kind of a funny line, but it's about love and loss and heartbreak. And when that song, which is like 7 or 8 minutes long, when it finally hits the climax and she's like, "Won't you have one on me?" Just the way she delivers that line would break you in two, you know? And that's where the power of expression comes in. I just find it really interesting that like I came into this, I was really thinking more in a binary way. I was thinking about the lungs and the metal element and inhalation, exhalation, and this idea of taking in a piece of art and living inside you and then expressing you. And then you've brought this up, this whole idea of channeling. You've kind of found a way to cut through the Gordian knot about this, where it isn't about, where the inhalation and exhalation is just there to get you to the next stage, which is like, where do these things come from in the first place? These beautiful things that we are taking into ourselves and memorizing and internalizing, where did they come from?
100%. It's partly it's that channeling thing, but then the other thing as well, I think, is the resonating thing of like, there is something in me that needs those vibrations to move it or something.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, it's those two parts. And like you referenced this in an earlier podcast where sometimes like you said something like, is there a bit of music that you will listen to if you just want to feel a bit sad or something? And it's not even necessarily that you want to feel sad, but more like, I need to feel sad now, or I need to connect with that part. And well, I suppose it makes sense that we talk through music, because that's so important to us. I'm just thinking as well of you were talking about Suzanne. I think that is the song that might be nice for people to look up. Like Hosier, the Irish artist, was on Tommy Tiernan's show, and his voice was absolutely fucked from touring. And he kind of goes like, "Oh yeah, I'm a bit, you know," and Tommy's kind of like, "Ah, sure, you're grand, you're a great singer," or whatever. And he's like, "No, man, I'm really, the voice to be gone." And then he sings, I think he sings Suzanne.
I must look that up.
And I found it gorgeous because his voice is gone. Yeah. And he is a very powerful singer, usually.
Huge range.
And it was beautiful that he just kind of worked his way through it. Yeah. And and this is it, like even talking about it, it moves so much in us. Sure, fuck it, that's why we love it.
It is indeed. I think we leave it there, Bart.
Yeah, it'd be good to do some kind of professional outro or something, but we can do that after. I wanted to say, brother, I really appreciated us just doing this while we were both feeling a bit low energy, and we've had some lovely. I do want to connect a bit with the people who are getting us in their ears right now. We've had some really beautiful responses from people who seem to enjoy the company. I find that deeply moving. I actually hadn't thought about that, because part of this has been so much that we want to kind of free ourselves up a bit through expression. But it's so lovely to get little stories from people who, you know, it's connecting with them in some way. I love that.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's the resonance thing, and I think we think about these topics a lot, and if they're coming up for us, it might mean that they're out there, that they're prevalent, that they're out in the world outside of us, and we have had people say that there have been some funny synchronicities in terms of like the topics we've chosen week by week and stuff that's happened to them and around them, and that's we love hearing that. We do, because people are just really kind. Like, and if people are resonating with this, we're really, really delighted, and we really appreciate everyone who listens. And yeah, chat to us. Tell us what you think.
Well, that's actually what I was getting to before you, in a really gentle way, cut me. No, you didn't. No, but I'm only messing now. But I'm actually interested to hear, especially, from some of those people or other people, how they feel about, when we're kind of doing it a bit like this as we are, you know, not well prepared or well organized.
Well, that was the whole point of today, is that we were like, oh, do we have the energy to create content? And they were like, what if we just steal content from other people and recite that?
You're such a bastard. That's not what happened at all. Way to piss over it.
Yeah, well.
I think I'm going to do what you did a couple of episodes ago, and I'm going to leave the last word to Anthony.
Oh, no. Oh, God, no. No.
Oh, this is hilarious. No is the last word.
This has been the Weshtern Philosophy Podcast and our rambling exploration of internalization and expression. Follow us on all the socials at Weshtern Philosophy Pod. If you want to support the podcast, you can buy us a coffee via the link in the episode description below. We'll be back next week with a very interesting topic and a very, very special guest to go along with it. Shalom.